Welcome back to another episode of World Ablaze with me, your host, George Fonts. I'm recording December 1st, 2025. And for many, for me at least, that is the start of Christmas. It is the month-long countdown towards Christmas, hence why I'm wearing this hat. And this is when people start to be nicer to each other. They remember that we're all human beings. This is when people start to actually literally spread goodwill and cheer. And it's much welcomed. With the year that we've had in this world, with the year that we've had thus far in America and across the globe, it's time for some good vibes, good news, good times. And for Americans, we had a holiday where that is pretty much the case, usually. And I am referring to the tragic event on Thanksgiving. And I am absolutely going to talk about that because what happened was a literal terrorist attack in which an Afghan refugee who was granted asylum in this country after cooperating with her government in Afghanistan suddenly decided, and maybe not so sudden, I'm sure there's a lot more to the story, but decided to attack two National Guardsmen near the White House in Washington, D.C. And one of them died. One of them was shot in the head and they died. The other, critical. As of this recording, critical. And I am calling exactly what it is. It was a terrorist attack, period. So I will be talking about that a little bit more. And we're going to talk about Venezuela. What's going on there? What is happening? Now, I'm going to offer different scenarios. I'm going to offer different takes, different point of views on what's going on there. Why is the U.S. involved? Why is Trump adamant on having a military presence? Why are they putting the pressure on Nicolas Maduro? Is it drugs? Is it oil? Is it something else? Or is it all things? Could it all be true? I think it's a combination, but we'll get to that. And if I have any time, I may get to another topic that's on my mind. But for now, we're definitely going to address what happened on Thanksgiving. We're also going to address what happened, or what is happening anyway, with the U.S. involvement in Venezuela. And so first, let's talk about this tragic event where a National Guards woman, because it was a woman, who was serving in the military, defending her country. And what's tragic about this is she was serving and she was committed to her duty on United States soil. She wasn't deployed. She was home. She was home. She was in the United States of America. And she was targeted. She was singled out by a person, an Afghan refugee turned someone who was granted access and asylum due to the fact that they were involved in CIA operations and helping the U.S. in Afghanistan in their operations against terrorist organizations in Afghanistan. This person has been here in the U.S. for a while and has now decided, or did decide, that the right thing to do would be to attack the United States of America by attacking its military personnel on sovereign U.S. soil. Much of the media was not willing to label this a terrorist attack. In fact, what's even worse is many people were making excuses for the attack, stating it's the U.S.'s fault that this person attacked the National Guard's people. It was the fact that the National Guard was even there that escalated the situation and led to this attack and the killing of one of the National Guardsmen. And I'm not sure how they can make that argument. How does that even equate? Why are they tying themselves up in pretzels to make this argument about it being okay for a militant, extreme Islamist, and I'm just going to call it what it is, to decide that during the 2025 Thanksgiving holiday, that they're going to just commit this terrorist act, that they were going to attack the United States of America by attacking our military personnel near the White House of all places. This was extremely deliberate. This was extremely thought out in advance. I'm not sure this was a spur of the moment issue. This person bided their time and waited until now. And what's coincidental about all of this comes just days after President Trump announcing that he was going to deem certain factions and organizations of the Muslim Brotherhood as terrorists. And in response, one of our National Guards people are killed on United States soil. This calls into question what many people have had concern with immigration. Are we letting too many people in? Are we granting too many people asylum without knowing their true intentions and who they really are? Whether they cooperate with our government or not, even in military fashion, doesn't mean that they don't have any nefarious plans down the road to take action once here on U.S. soil. We don't know. And maybe this person, after all this time, someone got to him. Maybe someone in the Muslim Brotherhood got to him. Maybe someone in their family, another terrorist actor, somehow got a hold of this person and turned the screws to him and said, "Hey, it's time. You either die for the cause, or we're going to kill you, your family, and everybody else, and you will be disgraced." That could have happened. And of course, that is just my opinion. That's conjecture for sure. I'll admit that. But this person has not died. He's been caught. President Trump vows to administer the full and most extreme measure of the law that can be applied to this terrorist, to this person who chose to end the life of one of our National Guardsmen here on United States sovereign soil. And I'm going to keep saying that. I want to drive the message home to you. I want you to understand this was done on U.S. soil. And people aren't making it a bigger deal because, oh, well, it was two people that were attacked. It was one guy, we caught him. No, you don't just sweep it under the rug. We don't move on. Now we got to call into question what's going on in Minnesota. We have all of these Somali immigrants, most of them brought in under the Obama administration. Many of these Afghans that were also brought in, not this isn't, strictly Minnesota, for example, but many of these Afghan refugees came in when Obama fumbled and when Biden poorly mishandled our pull out of Afghanistan. So between Obama okaying and fumbling the amount of people that he allowed in to the United States, mostly Somalians, and Joe Biden totally mishandling our pull out of Afghanistan, in which many, many Afghans came back into the United States. How many of these people were vetted? How many of these people were truly investigated? I don't know. Some were. There's absolutely a list. There was a list of corroborators, people who worked with the U.S. government at the time in Afghanistan that were promised asylum in the U.S. for their service in exchange. So yes, there was a list of people that were okayed to come back to the U.S., but there were many that weren't. There were many that just came, that happened to be in the mix. And they weren't deported. And so, again, where do we stand? What do we do here? We need to vet people. President Trump already announced that he's going to close off entirely immigration from troublesome third world countries, primarily much of the Middle East. And you can't blame them. After 9/11, we've had multiple threats that weren't acted out on our soil, but there were many threats that were stopped. There were many threats that were caught and stopped before they even happened. But that goes to show you that there has been a consistent attempt to try and terrorize the United States from within. And here we are, 2025, in November, on the week of Thanksgiving, and it happened. It happened. We have Somali refugees who get into politics in Minnesota who funnel money, steal money, launder money, whatever you want to call it, and send it to nefarious actors and terrorist organizations. This is a real thing. This happened. This is a real thing. This actually happened. Tim Walz's estate, the governor, the governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, acts as if he doesn't know what's going on. And what's even worse is there was a district judge that overturned the case against this person who was literally caught red-handed doing what they did. But because they were a Somalian, because they were a practicing Islamist, and nobody wants to look like they're being racist or bigoted, they just let it go. Like, how does that make sense? How does it make any sense whatsoever? And then we have Texas, where we have large Muslim populations, large large populations of Islamic practitioners trying to create their own communities, their own gated communities with their own schools, their own mosques. Obviously, I mean, they're going to need to build a mosque they want to worship. So, yeah, that would be their own. But a place where they can feel safe, separated, segregated from the rest of Texas, and also, quite literally, from the rest of the United States of America, creating almost their state within a state. They even went so far as to try, and maybe we'll get away with it, we'll see, impose their own law enforcement within their own Muslim community. This shit's getting out of hand. This can't be, because what's happening is this is being allowed to further develop, expand, and fester. And then we get what happened over this Thanksgiving weekend, or this Thanksgiving week, rather, where someone actually literally carried out a terrorist attack. And again, coincidentally, days after President Trump deemed that he was going to label certain certain organizations, certain factions of the Muslim Brotherhood as terrorists. Is it coincidence? Absolutely not. Is it racist to say, hey, we need to stop the influx of immigrants from the Middle East? Absolutely not. It just makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. We need to protect our sovereignty. We need to protect our culture. We need to protect who and what we are. And that raises another question. Who are we? What are we? What is Western culture? What is American culture? Good question. I don't even think any of us can really answer it anymore because it's become so diverse. But to allow someone to come to this country of ours, the United States of America, and allow them to have aggressive, outright opposition to our government, our way of life in America, which is based around the Constitution, democracy, freedom. And yes, we are a democratic republic. People who oppose all of that, that are afforded a good life here, but yet plot and plan to turn against and overthrow the United States of America, to turn it into the country from which they ran from, is ridiculous. And no, I'm not going to accept the argument about, well, the United States bombs all the Middle East. So what do you expect? They got to go somewhere, refugees. Yeah, bullshit. Okay. There has been wars and terrorism carried out in those regions against each other for years. And I've said it before, terrorism there against other Muslims, Arabs, has been going on for damn near 1,400 years. Well before US involvement, well before Western involvement. So, no, I'm not buying that bullshit. I'm just not. So, what is America? What is it that we got to protect? Freedom of speech, that's big. The right to our sovereignty, because, I mean, if we're not able to do that, if we're not able to vet people that would actually add value, who would actually care about America, who would actually want to uphold everything that we fight for, then what are we? Are we just a blip on the globe where we just agree to, you know, do commerce with everybody? Is this just nothing more than than economic station where multiple people can come and meet and just exchange monies? Is that all we are? No, it's not. No. We are a nation in which we afford people opportunity under the protection of the Constitution of the United States of America. And anybody who opposes that, anybody who doesn't agree with, anyone with a different political ideology that they do not want to let go of, and they want to be damn sure that they spread across this great nation, they need to go. That's a threat, period. I do not care who you are. I don't care what you think you are. I don't care what you do stand for. If it's a stance in opposition to the actual United States of America, its sovereignty, and the great culture we have that was built upon multiple cultures that all contributed to make this nation great. If you stand against all of that, then you need to be deported. You don't need to be here. I don't think there's any excuse to keep someone like that here. But under the guise of tolerance, acceptance, empathy, we allow ourselves to be attacked from within, just like what happened over the Thanksgiving week. America, you need to fucking wake up. You need to step up. You need to stop being soft. You need to stop worrying about what people could think of you if you say something. That ship has sailed. Everything that we've been warned about has been coming to fruition. It's happening. It's time to call it out. It's time to stand up. And no, that doesn't mean signaling people out because they look a certain way. That is absolutely not what I'm saying. But if you hear a person who is plotting, who believes in a different political ideology based on conquest and conquering, and is adamant on saying that they're going to spread Sharia law and that America will become an Islamist state, well, I say fuck that. I say no. I don't care what your skin color is. I don't care what you look like. I'm judging you based on your political ideology and your intent to overthrow the sovereignty of the United States of America. And with that being said, you need to go back from where you came, period. Never to be admitted again. And if seen trying to re enter the United States of America, harsh penalties must be enacted, whatever those may be. America, you need to care. You need to get your head out of the fucking sand. You need to start paying attention and realize these things are happening. You're not safe because you have this nice little routine of waking up, getting your coffee in the morning, dropping the kids off at school, going to your nice little office job, and you have your little office friends and community and whatnot. And then, oh my God, it's time to go back home. And then you have your dinner, and then, you veg just watching Netflix or whatever it is all day or all night. And then you go to bed And then you do it again. Rinse, repeat, don't give a fuck, don't care, head in the sand. And all you know, because you're not paying attention, is you hear deport brown person. And then you call said person who may have made that statement a racist without even knowing the full the full depth of the story, like everything that is involved around it, what's going on, why? Because you're living on the surface of information, as I always say. And I know people are getting tired of hearing that, but it's fucking true. And under the guise of empathy and inclusion and not wanting to be the bad guy, the racist person, we're letting this shit happen. We're letting this shit happen. We're giving away our country because we don't want to feel shame. We don't want to feel like we're doing something wrong, that we're taking away another person's opportunity. We're not respecting their religion. We're not respecting their freedom of speech, their thought. Well, look, there's a big difference between freedom of speech and advocating for the overthrow of the United States of America and literally trying to turn this great nation into something else other than what it is. Yes, we have a way of doing things. And if you come to this country and what you have to offer is incompatible with what we are, with what the United States is, then you need to go back. You're not allowed here, period. I, I'm just done. I'm just done. I'm done, and I need everyone else to be done. This shit's got to end. This has got to end. Minnesota should not have an entire section where it's literally a Somali refugee camp and where Ilhan Omar stands for Somalia first over America. And that's another issue we have. How are these foreign infiltrators, because that's who they are, that's what they are. How are they able to serve as a representative in in the United States Congress and make statements repeatedly that are in support of other nations and have said publicly, and I'm not going to play any clips on this. You can look it up yourself. It's out there. It's recorded. They literally state how they're going to put other nations before them. In Ilhan Omar's case, she's always Somali first. Somalia, Somalia, Somalia. A place that doesn't have a real government, a real military, infrastructure, etc. Such a great land. It's all about Somalia's interest instead of America's interest. Ilhan Omar needs to be removed and she needs to be deported, period. I don't give a fuck what anybody says about her being a citizen. A citizen under the guise of a lie, in which she had to marry her own brother to gain citizenship. Sorry, but it's true. Her own father served a ruthless dictator. A lot of people don't even know that. Syed Barr. Her father served Syed Barr. People don't even know that. It's true. And then we got Rashida Tlaib, who puts Palestine first before the United States of America, who has been, I'm paraphrasing here, but saying it's time to rise up and it's time to take control and it's time to protest and it's a time to do everything that we need to do to put Palestine first before the United States. She also needs to be removed. There is no fucking way it's acceptable to have anybody in office who outright says that they stand for another nation's interest before the United States of America. Like blatantly say it. Ilhan has to go. Rashida Tlaib's got to go. And dare I say, can we talk about Ted Cruz, who has been on record saying that he is here to uphold Israel's interests? Now, that could have been taken out of context, but he did say it. He did say it. Do we hold him accountable for those words? Do we give him an opportunity to retract that statement and say who he really stands for and who he's working for? You see, I'm trying to be objectionable here. I'm not just going after people who look brown, who are from Somalia. No, let's talk about Ted Cruz. Let's talk about many people. Let's Let's talk about those who do stand up for America. And while I'm not extremely happy with Thomas Massey, because honestly, his entire career, he hasn't really achieved much except saying no to just about everything. Maybe that is his achievement. I don't know. The only bill or legislation that he's actually really passed is getting the Epstein files released. Still waiting on everything, but it's happening. It's coming together. All right, I'll give you that. But what about the rest of your time, aside from just saying no? Marjorie Taylor Greene. Everybody's on her side now because Trump, the big bad meanie, is attacking her. Hmm. But she's made some statements beforehand that were not very forthcoming. She's done things that didn't seem like she's really in support of America, but we can credit her with the fact that she never took APAC money. And I'm not trying to paint Marjorie as a bad person, by the way. I don't think she's a horrible congressperson. And I don't think Thomas Massey is a horrible congressperson. But at least we have two people who do stand on principles, who do look out for the United States of America, who do look out for their constituents. And whether or not they've been extremely effective and could have done more during their time, that's up for debate. But they did stand upon their principles. They didn't waver, didn't really flip flop, didn't take money from foreign nations, unlike most of all people who serve in Congress, unfortunately. So, people who stand up for America, who stand for their principles, who never waver, and who are determined to protect America are chastised. While we have those who serve, like Ilhan Omar, who blatantly state that they're there for looking out for Somalian interests in America. That person's allowed to serve. That person is not pressured because she's also a Democrat. So Democrats don't care, do they? Do they? I know there's a lot of Republican fighting, but that's because, believe it or not, Republicans care. They're fighting because, yeah, they're disagreeing, but they actually care. Democrats, they don't even know where they stand. I think they're more concerned with keeping numbers than worrying about whether or not they should thin the herd and get rid of people who are like dragging them down because they need the numbers. They need it. They're not in a position right now where they can make drastic changes. But anyway, I'm starting to get off course here. Point being, we need to do better, America. We need to hold our politicians accountable. We need immigrants actually vetted. And no, we just can't let any immigrant in just because we want to feel good about whether or not we're letting in a person from the Middle East or a person from South America. It doesn't matter where they're from. If they have nothing to contribute, if they don't believe in the American way in life, if they don't believe in upholding the Constitution, then they need to go. They need to go, period. That's all there is to it. Now, I know this was really wordy. I usually try to break things up with clips and whatnot. But unfortunately, this episode's gonna be a lot of me talking because it's kind of a vent for me right now. I'm really fed up and frustrated with the way things are going. I'm fed up with the fact that our government doesn't seem to be standing up and looking out for our interests. I'm fed up that we have infiltrators serving in Congress and that Americans are so stupid that they just keep voting these people back in to keep serving while they blatantly have stated that they're not looking out for American interests. And that even includes those who say that they put Israel first, Israeli needs before America. Now, I'm not anti Jew. I'm not necessarily anti Israel. Israel is a nation, but they're a foreign nation. And again, if your goal is to make sure that you look out for that relationship and put that first above all, you shouldn't be serving in Congress. Period. So this goes for anybody who puts another nation's interest before America's interest. And by doing so, They're putting Americans last. Those Congress people got to go. Period. Immigrants who don't want to integrate into America got to fucking go. No questions asked. I don't care. Look, if I went to another country as an immigrant, I would be expected to learn the culture, to integrate into the culture. And if I was the one who decided and chose that this is where I got to go to make my new home, I would make a concerted effort to be a person that represents that nation who is affording me that opportunity. No more bullshit. No more Mr. Nice Guy. Fuck all this. After what happened over the Thanksgiving weekend is very clear. We no longer can be empathetic. We no longer can be inclusive. We can no longer, turn a blind eye for opportunity or for fear of being shamed. Fuck all that. Call it like you see it, period. That goes for domestic terrorists. Okay, I'm going to be fair here. White supremacist organizations shouldn't exist either. Period. Anyone that supports white supremacy, anyone that supports Nazism, they need to be removed too. Harsh penalties must be enforced. So, what I'm saying is, I'm not trying to be one sided on this, but I am saying we need to draw a line and we need to hold that line and we need to apply the law as it is written, as it needs to be to protect our sovereignty, our way of life, and our great nation. Because what's happening is crazy. The fact that we have elected a Democratic fucking socialist as the mayor of New York City is fucking insane. The fact that we have whole towns that look like third world countries that are there just to uphold immigrants that don't even believe in this country is insane. This can't happen anymore. This cannot be. And as Americans, we need to wake the fuck up and realize that we need to take action. Period. No longer sit on your ass. No longer put your head in the sand. Hold your elected officials accountable. Pay attention. Get involved. And actually care a little bit. Okay, so now let's talk about Venezuela. What's going on in Venezuela? Everybody wants to know. Now, what I'm going to do is offer a bunch of different scenarios in terms of why the U.S. is involved in Venezuela. Why are we pressuring Nicolas Maduro? Why are we shooting drug boats? Why are we even bothering to close down the airspace? Is it about drugs? Is it oil? Is it something else? First, let's start with whether or not President Trump is acting unconstitutionally. A lot of people want to believe that. A lot of people who oppose President Trump want to believe that. Mostly people who are Democrats or of the left. A lot of people that are part of the MAGA movement will think that Trump can do no wrong. And then you have people like me who are conservative, did vote for Trump, but are a little disenchanted with the results. We question Trump. I like a lot of what he does. But I think the play here, while I think I understand what's going on, I'm not sure I agree with it. But let's get back to whether or not him deploying troops and taking military action is unconstitutional. See, a lot of people cry and scream. Even members of Congress, your representatives are saying what he's doing is unconstitutional when they know damn well it isn't. And the reason they're saying this is because they want you to hate him that much more. They want you to hate the Republican Party that much more. They don't want to tell you the truth. The truth is this. Only Congress can declare war. Fact. Can't argue against that. That is just a simple fact. So then you may ask, well, why is it that President Trump is deploying troops in Afghanistan? Why are we shooting drug boats or alleged drug boats? Well, because that's also in the Constitution. You see, the president, if they deem there to be an imminent threat to where they would need to protect our great nation, our sovereignty, can do this, can deploy troops. Yeah, and they can operate. They can administer strikes against threats without congressional approval. They don't need approval from Congress to do so because, in the end, the president is the commander in chief of the military. He's the boss, he's in charge. And in order to react and look out for the best interests, the sovereignty of our nation, they need to be able to do so without waiting for approval. And a simple Google search will tell you this. I mean, you don't have to go too deep. In fact, here, I did that for you. You see, if we go over here, you see this here? Powers of the president. Right there. Commander in Chief, Article 2 of the Constitution designates the president as the commander in chief of the Army and Navy. Direct military operations. This role allows the president to direct the military after a declaration of war or other authorization from Congress. Deploy troops. Okay. The president has, at times, deployed military forces in situations that were not officially declared wars, leading to ongoing debate and the passage of the War Powers Resolution. Well, what's the War Powers Resolution? Well, the War Powers Resolution of 1973. Purpose, well, passed in response to the Vietnam War. This law aims to reestablish a balance of power between the president and Congress regarding military actions. Key provisions. It requires the president to notify Congress within 48 hours of deploying troops into hostilities and prohibits U.S. forces from remaining for more than 60 days without a congressional declaration of war or, very important, other statutory authorization. So the president can deploy troops under the War Powers Resolution of 1973. Caveat being, they have to notify Congress within 48 hours, they meaning the president, and the president must cease military actions within 6 days. So it can't go longer than 6 days, but that doesn't necessarily mean it can't go beyond 60 days. You see, under Obama's presidency, there are many military operations that were going on in Afghanistan, in the Middle East, that were much longer than 60 days that were not declared a war. Yet we were there. And Obama also took it upon himself to drone many people, send out drones to attack and kill many people. In fact, he did so without even verifying some of the targets, just because he had a gut feeling, I guess. He even droned a wedding, a damn wedding, where there wasn't any known terrorist to be, and killed the entire wedding party. All this under the congressional approval of, not Congress themselves, but the War Powers Resolution of 1973. Now, Congress can enforce the rule of ceasing all military operations in 60 days, but they can also choose not to. And the president themselves, all they really have to do is give a report. They got to submit a report to Congress stating the reasons why the operations must continue, that there is an ongoing threat, and that we got to continue to take these military actions. You see, the military can take action for a very long time without it ever being declared a war. These are just facts. These are things that anybody can just look up on the internet, just like I did. And to be honest, if you want to go deeper, you can go to the Library of Congress's website, and you could do an even deeper dive there, and you'll find that everything I'm saying is correct. Now, people say, well, he's been there longer than 60 days. Well, Congress hasn't stopped it either, right? Have they? No, they haven't. They haven't told him to stop. Nobody has stepped in and said, cease all actions. Nobody. Furthermore, there has been more than one action taken. See, strikes are not an ongoing military action. Strikes are singular. There's a threat. Let's neutralize the threat. Done. There's another threat another day. Separate action. We must neutralize that threat. Done. You see, it's not what you think it is. And just because we have a military presence there doesn't mean that we're actually going to war or actually doing anything militarily. You see, there's difference between an operation or declaring an operation versus actually taking military action. So, is it unconstitutional? No. Myth debunked. Claim debunked. Move on. Deal with it. Now, do we have to like it? No. I don't like it. I don't like the fact that we're there antagonizing Venezuela. I get it. I do. But I don't like it. And so, is this about drugs? That's the question. Is it about drugs? Is it oil? I don't know. A lot of people are claiming, well, Venezuela doesn't really have anything to do with drugs. They don't manufacture drugs. Well, I hate to tell you, but that's fucking false as well. It really is. Oh, well, nothing coming out of Venezuela ever gets to the US. Well, yeah, again, fucking false. Yeah, again, false. I'm going to go back to the interwebs. I'm going to show you something here. Let me go to this tab here. I want you guys to read this. I want to read along with you. Again, just doing simple searches. Now I can go a lot deeper, and I'm going to go into other websites that will explain a lot of this even more. Go in more depth because maybe you don't trust the AI search. Maybe not. Okay, fair point, fair. But regardless, let's go ahead and read this overview of Venezuelan drug involvement. As of now, estimates from a March 2025 U.S. State Department report suggest that between 200 and 250 metric tons of cocaine are trafficked through Venezuela. Let me say it again. 250 metric tons of cocaine are trafficked through Venezuela. And it's been said that 10% of these drugs actually are en route to the US. You see, there's two countries where there are known hardcore dug-in narco-terrorists that use Venezuela as a trafficking route. Mexico, Colombia. Both of them do. And even Venezuela themselves, they do manufacture drugs. And so Venezuela is the trade route in which these drugs go through, some to the United States, but most to Europe and Asia. That's right. It is a major trafficking route, one that everybody knows about. So is it about drugs? Maybe. Let's go to this next tab here. So everybody thinks, why now? Why does Trump care now? What is Trump doing? Why all of a sudden do we care? Well, actually, it's been going on for a long time. I can go back to the Obama era. Let's read about that. So the Obama administration consistently identified Venezuela as a major drug transit country. Oh my God, did the king, the Lord, the almighty leader and representative of the Democratic Party could never do any wrong, the infallible one himself? Did I read that right? Hold on. The Obama administration consistently identified Venezuela as a major drug transit country. Well, there you go. Interesting. But it's just Trump, right? This is just sudden. No, it's not sudden. And in fact, this has been going on well before Obama's administration. You see, the U.S. I'm sorry, I'm going to keep reading. I need to let you know I am reading some of this, by the way, so apologies. Because not everybody's watching this. I just forgot. This is also going out in audio, so I'm sorry you're not able to see what I'm doing here. So I'm going to continue to read some of these queries that I put into the AI searches on Google. And so that's what's happening here. So I forgot to clarify that. Apologies. So the U.S. approach emphasized law enforcement cooperation through Venezuela's government under Hugo Chavez, who was overthrown, and Maduro took over. But later Maduro rejected Venezuela's involvement with the U.S. and criticizing them and ended the direct cooperation with DEA. So in 2005, once Maduro took over, he's the one who ended the involvement. He's the one that said, we're no longer working together. We're not working with the DEA. We don't care about stopping drugs. We don't care about stopping the trafficking. He said, to hell with the U.S. We're going to do what we want here. And the reality is, it's been found that Nicolas Maduro has since been facilitating the trafficking of drugs by allowing this to happen. And it goes beyond Maduro. It actually involves top ranking military of the Venezuelan government. It's known. It's absolutely known. Moving on to another tab here that I'll be reading. And of course, it's a little Wikipedia. Give me a break here. I know how people feel about Wikipedia, but what I'm going to read here is right here. According to a 2009 US report, 90% of US cocaine is sourced from Colombia, with Venezuela and the Caribbean accounting for around 10% of US destined cocaine. So 90% of cocaine is sourced from Colombia, 10% of that ends up going to the United States of America. Take into account that 250 metric tons is trafficked out of Venezuela. 10% is still a lot of freaking cocaine coming to the United States. So, yeah, there is a concern. Maybe this is a drug issue. And then, for those who don't believe that this has ever happened, here's the DEA website itself. For those who can't watch, I just pulled up the DEA's website where I typed a query of Venezuela. And I'm going to start scrolling. You're going to see like there are multiple reports here on the DEA website that actually literally cite and tie drug trafficking, drug involvement, money laundering surrounding drug operations, all tied to narco terrorists and Venezuela themselves. So narco terrorists in Venezuela and the Venezuelan government themselves. And as you can see, this is just a long list of reports. Reports going back to 2011, 2016, 2014, 2005. I mean, you name it, 2003, this one right here. So is it a known issue? Yeah, for those who said that, well, I don't see anything on the government websites saying that Venezuela has ever been a problem. They don't traffic any. Well, again, another myth debunked. Another narrative talking point debunked by what? Actual facts. I went to the actual DEA website, just typed in Venezuela, and poof, there you go. Look, it all popped up. And for as much as people want to discredit Wikipedia for having their leftist leanings and how they word things and narratives they want to push, it's still a decent aggregator of, finding information. And it's up to you to go ahead and vet that information. But for the most part, what I found on this particular subject is true. It's true. Actually, it is true. So between the fact that 250 metric tons of cocaine are trafficked to Venezuela, that the Mexican cartels use Venezuela as a major trafficking route, that the Colombian cartels use Venezuela as a major trafficking route, the argument that this is not about drugs, not sure really holds up, because it sounds like it is about drugs. It sounds like the United States government has been working hard to put an end to this since before the Obama administration. In 2005, Venezuela closed their doors to working and cooperating in the United States of America with DEA and curbing this drug trafficking problem. Why? Because the Venezuelan government is involved. Don't believe me? I know you don't. So here's another. Here, I'm going to go back to the interweb here. All right, so I'm going to scroll up so you can read this. For anybody who is not watching, I am on the state.gov, basically the U.S. Department of State website. Here it is, Nicolas Maduro. By the way, a lot of people don't even know he's wanted by the United States of America. There's a reward of $50 million for his capture, or information leading to his capture, I believe. I'm going to scroll down here a little bit. I want everybody to understand this. So, Maduro helped manage and ultimately lead the cartel of the Suns, a Venezuelan drug trafficking organization comprised of high-ranking Venezuelan officials. As he gained power in Venezuela, Maduro participated in a corrupt and violent narco-terrorism conspiracy with the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, which is the FARC or FARC, a designated foreign terrorist organization. Maduro negotiated multi-ton shipments of FARC produced cocaine directed the Cartel of the Suns to provide military grade weapons to the FARC, coordinated with narcotics traffickers in Honduras and other countries to facilitate large scale drug trafficking, and solicited assistance from the FARC leadership in training an unsanctioned militia group that functioned in essence as an armed forces unit for the Cartel of the Suns. In March of 2020, Maduro was charged in the Southern District of New York for narco terrorism, conspiracy to import cocaine, possession of machine guns and destructive devices, and conspiracy to possess machine guns and destructive devices. So this whole thing with Maduro goes back well before Trump. He's a wanted person. He's a wanted narco terrorist found to have been involved in the trafficking of drugs. And this is the president of Venezuela. The actual president of Venezuela is a wanted narco terrorist. Still think it's not about drugs? I mean, maybe, maybe not. I think it is. I think drugs are part of the issue here, from what it seems like. Again, realize this. People always argue, well, why aren't we going after Colombia? Why aren't we going after Mexico? Because we work with those governments. They work with us already in trying to end the trafficking of drugs. Unfortunately for those governments, the damn narco terrorists have much more money, much more power, more weapons. And so it's harder to get a control on that. It's much harder. But they're still working with the United States of America. Venezuela doesn't care. Why? Because they're involved. They're involved. I got some more for you because you're going to tell me, I already know you're going to tell me, well, that report was from a United States organization. That was the State Department. I mean, how can we trust that story? That's bias. They just made that up. Well, maybe you can say that, but these charges go back to 2020. The documented lack of involvement by Venezuela and the closing off of involvement between our nations in fighting the war on drugs goes back to 2005. But okay, I got another one for you. Back to the interweb here. This is from the Caracas Chronicles. Now, this is a news outlet out of Venezuela. Here's the headline: what you should understand about the Cartel de los Soles, or the Cartel of the Sun. The drug trafficking mafia led by Venezuelan military officers is real, and it wouldn't exist without Maduro's support. Really? I mean, does anybody who has TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, still want to make an argument that drugs aren't an issue, that Venezuela is not a major drug trafficker, supplier of drugs, that they are illicitly involved in helping other narco terrorists and trafficking drugs? Are we still going to try to make that argument? So far, you can't. Now, this headline goes on to read that it's not exactly what Trump says it is. And this is where it's not a negative, by the way. Now, this article of the Caracas Chronicles, it goes on to say that, look, this didn't start with Nicolas Maduro. This goes on back to like 1993, I believe, is what it's going to say. And that the involvement of high-ranking military officials and corrupt government officials is an ongoing problem and situation in Venezuela. And it's not just known to the U.S., it's known to many countries around the world. In fact, there were people that were charged with crimes, not just in the U.S. over what goes on in Venezuela, but in many other countries. So, did this all start with Nicolas Maduro? No. But when Maduro came in, he leaned into it. He cut off ties with the U.S., and he decided that he's going to continue this operation. Why? Makes money. It's probably becoming one of the leading sources of capital and funds for the country. So, is it about drugs? Yeah, Yeah, it is about drugs. Is it only about drugs? No. Again, this is another scenario that I'm giving to you. You could make your own decision in the end, but I'm saying that it is partly about drugs. Not solely about drugs, but it is definitely partly about drugs. So what about the oil? What about the oil? A lot of people say that the oil is the reason we're there. That President Trump wants the oil. He wants to control the area and get the oil. Well, we used to get oil from Venezuela. Chevron used to actually operate in Venezuela. We have a lot of offshore Gulf refineries that are actually designed to process the thick crude oil that comes out of Venezuela. But that all stopped when Maduro came into power, when the Venezuelan government became super corrupt. And so since then, we no longer buy from Venezuela. We do not get their oil, and we've been fine without it. But Venezuela has a lot of it, and it's a very good argument, honestly, because Venezuela has a lot of oil. I mean, a lot. I'm going to go ahead and show you this chart here. So this is the top 10 countries with reserves, like the top 10 countries with the most reserves. Number one is Venezuela, as you can see. They have 300. See my cursor here. For anyone who can't see that, I'm highlighting this, but 303.2 billion barrels of reserve. That's more than Saudi Arabia, more than Iran, more than Iraq, more than the United Arab Emirates, more than Kuwait, more than Russia, more than Libya, and definitely more than the United States. Now, that being said, the top 10 reserves in the world, the United States is on that list. We don't have anything near the reserves of Venezuela. In fact, no other country does. But we do have a substantial amount of 45 billion barrels of reserves. And this report was as of 2024. So the argument that this is about oil, it could be valid. It could be valid. But we've been going on for so long without it. I'm not sure oil is the main reason we are there. Stopping them from selling oil to Russia, China, our adversaries, people who are not really our allies, that may be the thing right there. And in fact, that leads to another scenario. Now, of course, we've already talked about too. I didn't really dive into the oil too much because look, we already know that Venezuela can produce a lot of oil, or at least they have that capacity to do so. And with 300 billion barrels of oil reserves, yeah, it's substantial. It's definitely an argument. Absolutely. It's easy for anybody to say, well, they're just going after the oil, they're going after the resources. The only problem with that, though, is Nicolas Maduro himself has offered Trump already this year, 2025, revenue from Venezuelan resources. I'm talking about like he was literally willing to give the United States the majority so that the US would just look the other way. You know what Trump did? He denied it. He could have took the deal. I mean, Maduro was really like literally willing to give the United States of America profits from Venezuelan resources. But Trump said no. And for that reason, I'm not sure that it really is all about the oil. It kind of points more towards the drugs again. Maybe it is about the drugs. Here's another scenario. China. A lot of people have not been considering this. You see, China is a ally of Venezuela. China has major investments in Venezuela. China gets oil from Venezuela. China also sells and supplies arms to Venezuela. China trains Venezuelan military. China is a major player. They are considered to be an ally of Venezuela. So China has a presence. China also has a presence when it comes to the Panama Canal. Now, a lot of people claim, well, China doesn't control the Panama Canal, as it's been claimed, but they control the two major ports on either side of the canal through a Hong Kong company. Company, wink, wink, right? Because we know that China has always done everything under the guise of a company. What a lot of people don't realize is when it comes to China, the government of China is your partner. So, in establishing a major business in China, the Chinese government is a member of that company. Maybe a small percentage, but it doesn't matter the percentage. It's the Chinese government. China is working hard to control the area. Combine that with the escalations against Taiwan, or at least the statements made by China, with the antagonizing of the Philippines by China. And now we have the tensions between China and Japan. Venezuela is a partner. Their investment in Panama and the Canal is significant. And they've been there with the control of those ports since I believe 2017. Now, a lot of people can say, well, Panama controls the canal. Do they really though? I mean, do they? The other thing about the involvement in the area by China is their Belt and Road Initiative, which Panama is completely bought into. The Belt and Road Initiative helps China circumvent other avenues of transport and commerce so that they can make money. One belt, one road, as they call it. And they need that Panama Canal. They need that area. Their presence in the area and their investment in the area is to make sure they have control and security in the area to, well, again, protect their investments. Let's go to the interweb over here again. So here we go. A little bit of a AI summary. The political support. China has consistently supported Venezuela. President Nicolas Maduro, opposing international sanctions and warnings the U.S. against bullying the country. They seem to have shared values. The two nations have pledged to uphold common values and oppose hegemonism, power politics, and unilateralism. Well, that's funny for China to say they oppose power politics, right? Now, here we go. China is a major creditor. Okay. So the creditor debtor relationship here. China is Venezuela's largest creditor with loans totaling over 60 billion, which translates to Chinese talk in terms of how they operate politically. And they just bought your country. The relationship's evolved into what some analysts call a creditor trap for China. Oil as collateral. So, this is what Venezuela does. Crude oil exports are the primary way it repays its debt to China, and China relies on these exports to satisfy debts. So, shifting lending patterns, China's lending to Venezuela has slowed considerably since the death of Hugo Chavez and the 2014 oil market crash. But still, they are still taking oil in lieu of payment, right? They're willingly taking resources in lieu of payment. So here's the military cooperation. Arms sales. China has been a major supplier of military equipment to Venezuela. So if they're selling military equipment to Venezuela, that's another profit center for China, as well as the oil, because they gave them a loan. They're paying China back in oil. They're taking that oil and either using it or reselling it. Here's the partnership, though. The two countries are advancing their military cooperation through the extent of this cooperation is not fully public. So yeah, it's not fully public, but they're training. They will operate jointly in that specific area in the Caribbean. So China has an investment. China has a reason to be there. China is trying to assert control of the area. And for the US to get involved, for President Trump to want to send a presence, a military presence into the area, is signaling to China that, hey, whoa. We're no longer gonna let this happen. We're gonna control our own backyard. You don't belong in our backyard. We're gonna control our own backyard. It also could be a way of signaling to China, like, hey, you're antagonizing our allies. You're antagonizing the Philippines, you're antagonizing Japan, you're antagonizing Taiwan. So what we're gonna do is cut off this other major route that you need to operate, this other source of income, as well as a quicker way to get around South America we're going to cut that off. We're going to take that from you. So that's one scenario that a lot of people aren't talking about, the Chinese involvement. The US has been weak on opposing China's involvement there in the area. They have been so weak that China has been digging in their heels and controlling that area, putting billions of dollars of investment into these countries to gain their favor and support. They're controlling the Panama Canal, and they have a big presence there. They have a big presence in the area, right in our backyard, not far. So, yeah, China is the other issue. So, what has President Xi said? Well, let me go ahead and go back to the interwebs here. So here's a report from a news outlet that actually comes out of China. So Xi pledges support for Maduro, criticizes U.S. actions in Venezuela, and President Xi is not the only one criticizing the action. Apparently, Putin has also gotten involved because Putin's also an ally. So this whole thing in Venezuela is a mess. It's a bigger situation that people want to understand or don't want to understand. They just know that they want to find Trump to be unconstitutional and everything he's doing to be wrong. That we have no reason to be attacking narco terrorists, that we have no reason to be there militarily, whether it's just a military presence or actual military action. It sounds like all these things can be true. It could be that we're there because of drugs. Absolutely. There's a long-standing history of us trying to fight drug trafficking through Venezuela. 250 metric tons of cocaine every year. In fact, there was a military military press news outlet that I read earlier that actually estimated to be north of 300 metric tons. And think about that. I mean, come on. What are we talking about? We're talking about 10% of all that coming to the US still, the rest going to Europe and Asia. It's a huge trafficking route. It's a way to circumvent. It's an easy way for the Mexican cartels and the Colombian cartels to get their product out with facilitation from a government who is complicit in trafficking drugs, that is using their own military operatives to make sure that these drugs get on their way. Venezuela is corrupt. Nicolas Maduro is a wanted man. I'm sorry. You may not like the answers I'm giving you or the scenarios that I'm presenting to you, these possibilities, but all of them seem like they could be true. It's about drugs. It's about oil. It's about China. Venezuela is a mess. Maduro made it that way. And beyond that, Maduro's oppressing his own people. He's an authoritarian. I mean, hell, he's really a dictator. There's not even any confirmation that he is a legitimate president. In fact, many countries still to this day refuse to acknowledge that he is the president of Venezuela. He is a narco terrorist, a wanted narco terrorist. So, yes, a lot of this is about drugs. A lot. A lot. A lot of it is about standing up to China, trying to control the area, and severing or interrupting that relationship that they have with Panama and with Venezuela. Because whatever's going on here is signaling to everybody in the Caribbean, to all the surrounding countries right there. Whatever the U.S. is doing, believe me, they're all watching. And it's going to be interesting to see how China really responds to all this. Will they step in militarily? Will they send a military presence to stand up to the United States of America? That will be interesting. Historically, China hasn't really done much, to support their allies when it comes to military involvement. Not really. But in this case, this is a direct disruption to their Belt and Road Initiative. This is a direct disruption to their free oil. Well, not really free, but I guess they bought it with that loan, $60 billion loan. But it disrupts the barrels of oil that they receive. It disrupts so many things that China has going on over there. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. It's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. With all this being said, I'm going to end the show. That was a lengthy, very heady, very talkative show. And I apologize. I didn't have a lot of clips to break it up. I hope that I gave you something to think about. I hope that you all take America serious, our sovereignty serious. I hope that you no longer are going to not call things out because you don't want to be shamed. And I hope that you have a little bit better understanding of what might be happening in Venezuela. I know it still may be foggy, but I'll just say that it doesn't seem like the Trump administration is acting without reason. There's a bigger play here that we're not seeing, a bigger play that I'm still trying to understand. But at least I was able to look at these three different scenarios, that being drugs, oil, and China, and hopefully presented it to you in a way that gets you to think that, well, now I get it. I'm not sure which ones to play. It might be all of them, but I'm getting a better understanding on as to why we react, why we're there, why we're doing what we got to do. And again, I don't necessarily agree with how this came about and how we are going about it, but at the same time, with the increased aggressions by China, the increased opposition by Maduro, and his complicit nature in facilitating the trafficking of drugs, Venezuela is an issue. It's definitely something that needs to be handled. Does it need to be handled militarily? That is a good question. I mean, do we need to start bombing Venezuela? I don't think so. I think there's enough pressure here that Maduro gets the message. Trump's already told him, it's like, hey, we'll leave you alone, but you can't stay. It's time for you to go. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. And once again, please like, share, subscribe to the show, turn on notifications, let everyone else know about World Ablaze. Help me spread the word. We're going to do this organically. And I appreciate every single one of you that tunes in every week, whether it's by audio, by video, whatever it is. Thank you very much. I hope that you benefited from what I had to say on the show today. And we'll be back with more guests. I have more guests lined up. Be on the lookout for that. And I've released a few bonus episodes. So I was on a few podcasts recently as a guest, and then look for those. They will be shared to you through this feed where you listen to World Ablaze as a bonus episode. So I'm going to give that to you as well. Once again, thank you very much. Have a great day.
Devils hide behind redemption. Honesty is a one-way gate to hell.